So, yeah, in preparing for today's panel, I couldn't help but think of the opening of Charles Dickens' A Tale of Two Cities. You know the famous opening line, it was the best of times, it was the worst of times. And as I saw in the New York Times op-ed page today, Charles Blow took the same analogy but applying it to the African American community. But the sentence goes on to say, it was the age of foolishness, it was the epic of belief, it was the epic of incredulity, it was the season of light, it was the season of darkness, it was the spring of hope, it was the winter of despair. And that harrowing opening line was published in 1859, 150 years later. There's real world resonance for that, and that's for the LGBT community. And as John Barry said in his very forceful and powerful speech, there are a lot of good things that have happened and a lot of bad things have happened. We've had hate crimes, but we've had Prop 8. We've had the lifting of the travel ban, but Maine voters rejected marriage. Washington, D.C. is just one step away from legalizing same-sex marriage. But as we know this week, New York State killed the chances of a same-sex marriage bill. So it's a schizophrenic time for the lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender community. So who better to have with us to talk about that than two members of Congress? So Tammy Baldwin and Jared Polis, thanks very much for coming. Before we get directly into LGBT concerns, could you talk about the general mood on Capitol Hill at this time? You know, the president just gave a speech on Afghanistan. We're going through healthcare. We're still trying to pull the economy out of the toilet. Are people panicked up there?
Well, I would say as a member of the House, up every 2 years, I would almost give you the perspective from our home districts rather than Capitol Hill. Mm-hmm. I have started so many speeches at home with the lines that you just started, best of times, the worst of times, because our constituents are hurting. The unemployment is affecting all of the communities that we represent. And as members of the People's House, we're very, we go back to our districts, we're very close. And I know all the people who are state representatives or local representatives are experiencing the same phenomenon. And so we return to Washington, having listened to our constituents, very concerned about the politics moving forward. What will this vote for 2010 if people are hurting the way they are today when they go to the polls next? And I would say the sentiment is very serious right now. We understand that while we have this great super progressive majority in the House and the Senate and a wonderful new president, that the status of our economy right now is going to create a lot of challenges for us politically.
Jared, are you seeing the same thing in your district in Colorado?
You know, this has certainly by any measure been one of the most productive House of Representatives sessions even for an entire session, even though it's only been 1 year. You look at the magnitude of the bills that have passed, the Recovery Act, cap and trade, and health care reform. Now, 2 of those 3 have not been signed into law because they're still in the Senate, but nevertheless the House has completed its business on 3 monumental pieces of legislation. In a typical year, any one piece of legislation of that magnitude would be considered a productive year for the House to take on any one of those 3. We've taken on 3. There's certainly some exhaustion, I think, setting in, a lot of waiting for the Senate. We need to hear back from them to get these pieces into law.
Aren't they a pain?
What's that?
The Senate, they're just a pain. Right? You guys look at them on the other side, do nothing.
Well, you know the phrase they use in Congress all the time, people are complaining about the other party, and they'll say, the Republicans aren't the enemy, they're just the adversary. The Senate is the enemy.
But we interrupted you. Sorry.
Yeah, so it's been a very productive session and a very exciting time to be there. No doubt about it. It's a time of new ideas, a new administration, the same party in control of Congress, and I think a lot of members remain very optimistic, again, set amid the country on the decline. But if we think about it, it is these very challenges our countries face which led the voters to give our party this opportunity to govern. Mm-hmm. It wasn't like the recession had started, the global financial markets had melted down, we were in 2 wars. These are all the things that, ironically, led the voters to put us in an opportunity to solve them, and now we're given not only the opportunity to govern, but the responsibility of dealing with these issues.
Now, as a result of all the hell that's broken loose, in the economy with the wars and everything that Congress is considering, is there any room for consideration of anything that's outside of healthcare, economy, Afghanistan, financial reform? Is there room for any kind of discussion?
Well, I would say the good news is that a large part of our agenda has to do with health care and jobs. Think of ENDA. The Employment Non-Discrimination Act is absolutely about assuring the right to employment and being free from discrimination in employment on the basis of sexual orientation and gender identity. The Domestic Partnership Benefit and Obligation Bill is about providing health care to the same-sex partners of federal employees. And so these, especially these two initiatives, are right on message and right squarely in the sort of issues that we are dealing with and tackling in the House of Representatives.